I met you in the half-light, where the signals hum and fade, words hanging like laundry on a wire we never made. Your eyes were doing circles, like a compass without north. I was counting all the seconds I've been walking back and forth. The clock was missing numbers, the street forgot its name. Every thought I carried felt borrowed, bent and strange. You spoke in quiet riddles, like rain against the glass. Felt something loosen that I didn't know I had. So tune your heart a little closer to mine. Let the static fall behind. We don't need a perfect line, just a frequency that holds through time. I've been trading paper promises at corners of the day, watching shadows sell their stories, then quietly walk away. But you stood like a question that refused to disappear, like a song I didn't know, but somehow always here. Your laugh moves slow and sideways, like smoke across the room. I followed it instinctively, like moths follow the moon. Every step between us shortened, though we didn't move it all, like gravity remembered why it had to fall. So tune your heart a little closer to mine. Let the static fall behind. We don't need a perfect sign, just a signal that survives the night. If love's a map with half the roads erased, we'll read it by the scars we trace. No fireworks, no closing door, just echoes learning what they're for. Now the world keeps spinning stories it insists are true, but I hear a softer rhythm every time I look at you, like something ancient waking underneath the noise, a quiet stubborn harmony that never begs for choice.
Was that enough suspense? Sorry, having a issue with Substack. I almost had everything sorted out great, and then in the last minute, I think Substack's still trying to connect. So we'll give it a little bit of time for people in Substack to join, and let me get my stuff together, because now I am. This is where we're streaming right now. This is why this duct tape and glue production. We are streaming on Rumble, Locals, YouTube, Twitch, X, Discord, and Substack. Somehow, I think it's working. So we'll see what happens with that. And good morning. And good morning to all of you. I hope this is the best Saturday of your life, or at least the very best Saturday, February 7th, 2026 of your life. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I hope you're all doing amazing today. And we're going to start with our land acknowledgement. And I hope you have been starting to, commit it to memory, because I think we're going to stick with this, but we'll see. I think it's going to evolve. People who are in Canada will understand this. Some people, if you're in the US, maybe in California, you'll be familiar with this ridiculousness. But this is our land acknowledgement, how we start. Yeah, minus 15 degrees. I get it. It's very cold. We'll talk about that in a minute. So for those of you who are in the Great White North or in the Communist Republic of California, we would like to acknowledge that we're standing on the traditional territory of, well, whoever was here and was savagely killing each other at the time. Anyways, they aren't in charge anymore. We're here until the Americans take over, at least in the case of Canada. Sip. Isn't that great? So I'm trying to, I think the idea is once we sip, that's kind of the symbolic moment of where we come together and we shift into this positive space and have maybe some difficult conversations about some frustrating issues, but trying to keep it light. And we'll go. I'm going to talk more about that and where we're going with this in later on in the stream. By the way, do you think that thumbnail upset some people? I'm going to do you can't blame me. You have to blame AI. I just prompted AI based on the ridiculousness of what we're seeing right now in the outrage mob media. I did post it to Bluesky. For those who don't know, Bluesky is my term for blue sky, because it's definitely more Soviet than anything else. So I posted there. I'm sure we'll find out if it's frustrating. But what I did learn is why the Onion News is no longer funny, because the Onion News is all over Bluesky, and it went woke, it's gone broke, and it's tripling down and thinking they're going to save themselves. Very frustrating, because the Onion used to be quite entertaining and clever. Around the time that I used to read Dilbert when I was a kid, we all knew about the Onion. But anyways, that's their future. That's their desire. All the best to them. We don't need them anymore. So yesterday, I don't know, any of you were watching the Scott Adams stream, which is in the slow transition of the rebrand to the Scott Adams School, which I think is a great idea. Had a great conversation with them again yesterday. This is the team that was behind Scott Adams, helping set up his support and tech, not tech support, but guiding him through that. All volunteers, helped set up his store and stuff. Really good people. And a shout out to Owen and Erica and Marcella and Sergio, or as they say in Spanish, Sergio. And really nice guy, very nice people. And look forward to being back on there, because they've asked me to come back periodically, so I guess I'm going to do that. Also was on yesterday, Mark Petroni, AM 960, which is a radio station in Toronto. Mark is a longtime conservative journalist who's worked in legacy media for, 35 years. Really understands how things work. So he is kind of adjacent to the establishment, but, as I've said before, there are good people in all places, and you try to maintain those relationships with good people. And maybe that's how we're going to work to saving the world from this downward spiral we're getting into. So I'm getting a lot of comments, and don't worry, I'm going to get to monkey hoax, and I'm going to get to the Bitcoin CIA nonsense and a bunch of other stuff. But we got some things I got to get through. So comments. Firstly, You're all amazing. All of you who are sending your comments, I really appreciate it. And that is, that's very sweet of you. And please keep them coming. I'm trying to respond to as many of you as possible. It's not possible to respond to everyone, but when I get a break in my time, I'm sitting, before bed, I'm looking who's commenting and trying to get back to you. So thank you for all of that, and you're starting to get more traction when all the idiot trolls come out and start attacking you and calling you names. I personally love it. People get upset by that. I think it's hysterical, and that's the framing of the cognitive dissonance and the 7 signs of it, which we're going to get to that in a little bit as well. And just so for all of you know, I'm going to say things you disagree with, and you're going to think things that I disagree with, and we have, a different view of the world on certain topics. But I still love you, and I'm going to do my best to explain my framing of the world and try to make it in a logical argument that you may not agree with, but you understand how I come to the conclusion. And I'm going to try to do that for people who disagree with me as well. So, we want to kind of dial back all the adversarial aggressiveness we see on the internet. And that's why I'm trying to build this whole ecosystem of Substack and locals and Discord and package them all together in. It's going to take me a little while to do that. And there's going to be a monetization element to it because I have to live like everybody else, but not exclusively. So I'm going to try to figure out what stuff is monetized, what stuff's not. And the streams will continue and they will not stop. And there's a number of you who have been very supportive with me this entire time. And I'm going to reach out to you individually and get you involved in the ecosystem the way Jess is already involved in the ecosystem. For example, she's constantly on the Discord and posting to the meme channel. And I really appreciate that, Jess. You are amazing, and thank you. And thank you to Rocky. Rocky is a flying friend who is a big fan of me. So I really appreciate it. So the other thing is, I don't know if you agree with this. I'm starting to believe X has become not so good for us in terms of our mental health capacity. I think it's driving a lot of mental illness, but maybe we can kind of fix that by dialing things down a little bit and exposing some of the nonsense in a friendly and non-combative way. But all the comments, by the way, on Spotify have been great. So you're all very sweet, and thank you for those too. And even YouTube, which is usually a cesspool of communists just calling people names. You've all been really great. And despite the fact that yesterday, what did we do? Yesterday, we stepped on the third rail. We talked about Jeffrey Epstein and Israel, and I hope that was informative. And we're probably going to go more into that issue because I don't think it's going to be going away anytime soon in the media. I've already been asked to reach out. Well, I've been reached out and asked to join friends of mine who run a podcast network overseas, and we're going to do something specifically on that as well in more detail. We'll cover it here. It's not going to go away anytime soon. By the way, if you notice my eyes, they're switching back and forth. It's not that I'm reading so much. There's 2 cameras here. So there's the Substack camera, and then there's the main feed camera. And I'm trying to give both of you equal to. I'll figure out a better system for this in the future, but that's just how it is right now. And the last thing is articles are on bjdictor.substack. Those are some of the articles that you've seen. Go to the Daily Bell and to the nationaltelegraph.com and to Zero Hedge. Most of it tends to start there. And so I encourage you all to join Substack, which is also where I'm streaming live to Substack here. And I think I'm decided. I think maybe we're going to end up over time doing some nighttime stuff as my life gets a little bit more organized and organized differently. There's going to be a lot of changes in the future. You'll see them coming up, and we'll talk about that as things go on. So a little bit of a review. So yesterday, as I mentioned, we discussed Epstein and Israel and stepped on that third rail. And I think it went really well, actually, because I got people from all sides saying like, okay, maybe, sort of thing. And I think that's progress. When we can get people considering all sorts of opinions, that's what we need to do. And so for those of you who didn't watch, you can always watch it still up on the stream, and you can listen to it on Spotify if you want when you're walking your dog. But I mapped out how Epstein was a woke left champagne socialist. You choose the expletive to add to that. And he said directly, "I don't like Israel at all." That was after Deepak Chopra invited him there for, I guess, a vacation. I don't know. They're going to Eilat, or they're going to Tel Aviv on the beach. Who knows? But, we speculate, I speculated the reason he did not like Israel at all, Jeffrey Epstein, quote, was probably because Israeli women who have to serve in the army, and many of them often work in intelligence or screening or border security, have weapons grade street smarts, just like many people around the world from the developing world. That's something you'll notice if you lived in different places around the world and you've dated women from different places around the world. There's a stark difference in their ability to screen for danger that we just don't have in certain Western countries anymore. We're going to get it. We're going to get it as things collapse and get more violent. We're going to discuss that in a bit as well. But I think that might have been why the creepy pedo didn't like Israel so much. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's kind of how I see it. And that's likely going to change here. So a couple of comments. I got a comment from, and this is, the Scott Adams people will understand this. This is from and this is related to Epstein. So I mapped out clearly he's a left-wing woke. How do you describe him? I mean, without using any bad words, he's just garbage. He's a left-wing woke garbage, a champagne socialist. So it's socialism for you, and it's hyper-capitalism for him. Like that, he's within that group of people. And there's all sorts of people from different ethnicities and backgrounds that are within that champagne socialist nonsense. I see, Maureen, you're here. I'm going to talk about your comment, Maureen. So give me a second, and thank you very much. You're very sweet for that. So this is a lawyer by the name of Edward Graham, and he keeps posting no matter what. I mean, it says a lawyer. Who knows, right? And I looked at the account, it says lawyer, but who knows? It could be, Ahmed in the middle of Pakistan, or Abu, the guy that Trump was going to bomb his house. Who knows? But this lawyer account, Edward Graham, keeps posting Epstein was a Mossad agent, no matter what, no matter the evidence, no matter Epstein's own words saying how much he despises Israel, doesn't matter. He's a Mossad agent. How can this be a lawyer? Right? Like, what kind of lawyer is that? I think it's the whole principle of lawyers to be able to understand evidence and think critically and figure out, okay, where did I get things wrong? Because if I don't, then my client might be going to jail. So I'm not so sure about his credentials, but who knows, maybe. But there's something I brought up, a theme in here, and I'll remember, Jesse, you'll know this. There are 3 of the least credible people in societies, 3 of them. What are the 3 least credible people in society? For those of you who've been here for a while, do you remember? I think you probably do. There's a long delay, so I'll just explain it. Those 3 people are politicians, the media, and lawyers. So this, and for a number of reasons, the lawyers always put with an asterisk because, they're essentially hired guns. And it looks like the media are hired guns as well now. Yeah, there you go, Jesse. Media, lawyers, and politicians. So here we have a lawyer who, no matter the evidence, is doubling down, repeating the smear over and over and over again. Just, a form of online public shaming, like a radical leftist. And so what Edward did is he posted a very long comment on one of these things, and he keeps repeating it. He was a Mossad agent and whatever. For those who listen to Scott Adams or have a background in hypnosis or verbal communication techniques and stuff, much of this will sound familiar. So first, his conclusion was very long. The whole thing was very long-winded. So you can tell he's spiraling into cognitive dissonance because he's just in a evaded state. He's in a state of rage where he can barely contain himself because his worldview has been completely undone. He's probably one of those people, for years and years, whatever smear he's going to be regurgitating, he's just built his whole reputation on it. And now his world has collapsed around him. That's what happens. And this is on a subconscious level. This is why people get so impassioned with complete nonsense, because they tie their identity and their ego to an opinion that we're going to explain what that opinion is in a second. So for the people who know how Scott Adams perfectly articulated this phenomenon better than anybody has, he refers to this sort of behavior as this 7 signs of cognitive dissonance. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, I've talked about it on the stream many times before. What are the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance? They are, number 1, they'll change the topic. Number 2, ad hominem. Number 3, mind reading. Number 4, word salad. That's what Blackface Trudeau did all the time. Number 5, an analogy instead of a reason, not an analogy to support a reason. Number 6, it's too complicated to explain. Or number 7, the so you're saying straw man is how I describe it. And what's interesting in this very long-winded explanation, you can see a number of those signs of cognitive dissonance surface. So one of the things, I don't know if it's ever communicated, people can be experiencing more than one of the 7 signs simultaneously. And usually the more they are, the more enraged they are, the more in evaded state they are at that point, right? So people can often exhibit several of the signs of cognitive dissonance. This is also why there's a thing in law enforcement that Ron Yost actually explains this well. Many police officers know this, but he articulates it very simply and effectively, which is the policy in police and in law enforcement and intelligence gathering as well. Let them talk. Just give them a cup of coffee, sit, become friends with them, and just let them talk. Just listen. And so that's what you're seeing with this long post, because when you just let them talk, eventually people are going to reveal who they are. And this is exactly what's happening with this very long-winded, reconstruction, reframing of all of his worldview that has collapsed around him. And it's funny, like you can see this sort of response is often online too. And you see this sometimes from, he looks like, I guess he's part of this wing that has grappled on to this, conspiracy theory. And it's now driving everything that they do. It's really scary when you see people who do this. And there's this knowledge base that he has that's completely fabricated. Again, the Scott Adams or hypnotist type people, they will know this. What's it called? It's called an assigned opinion. He doesn't know anything about Jeffrey Epstein, as most people didn't know for so long. But yet he's bought into the frame, so much so that through repetition, the godfather of all persuasion, over and over and over and over again, he probably was following the Pakistani trolls on Twitter that just kept saying it over and over again. And he adopted it as his identity. And now anybody who questions it is questioning his identity. That's why they get so aggressive. And you see this often amongst the radical left as well. Anybody that's really extremely, that's bought in to any sort of framing of the world or ideology, and they've adopted it in such an extreme form, this is why this is happening, right? And this is also why you'll see online, and by the way, left and right do this. Let me just adjust this here a little bit. This is why you see online often, you'll see accounts that left and right doesn't matter. They're going to be clipping the exact same video from a podcast or whatever, And you can scroll down the feed, and what do you see? You see 20, 30, 40 accounts posting the exact same thing. This is what they're trying to do. They're trying to use repetition to get people to buy into a framing of the world. This is all, and many of those accounts, some of those accounts I'm sure you, we all follow. Yes, there's a person who runs the account, but there's also an account manager. And the account manager is the PR agent or the communications company that's running a whole batch of accounts. And what they'll do is they'll upload something and they'll distribute it to 40, 50, 200, 300 accounts all at once, right? You'll notice that's not mine. I'm not parroting anybody else's feed. And there's a number of us who are like that. We're not tied into, we don't have any sort of third-party PR company that's helping to run our accounts. We're just running it ourselves. And that's part of the reason sometimes for the spiked engagement of other people. It's because there's a PR firm that's running it. A couple of more comments I want to get into. And first, Paul Westmont responded, I think this might have been on YouTube if I'm not mistaken. He said, please pick up where Scott left off. And I thought, oh, that's so nice. I guess Paul might have been one of the people who's watched me on the Scott Adams School with that group of amazing people. And Scott, I will do my best, but no one is Scott Adams, and no one should try to be Scott Adams. We all have varying areas of interest, and some of which are completely different. So, for example, I'm a big music and car guy. I always was since I was could barely walk. I don't think Scott was. That's why he ended up playing the drums. That's a joke to drummers, by the way. If you play any instruments, you'll understand that joke. Love you, drummers. I'm just kidding. But Scott and I both, and many of us as well, we had similar corporate world experience. And me and him and many of you who watch these streams have had similar training in terms of communication and how to reach people. But I am more flawed. And in that, I mean, I am definitely more animated and more passionate. And that a lot of people don't like that. I get that. It's just not everybody's cup of tea. But that's just who I am. We're all using the same hardware structure. We're using the same operating system, human OS, but we have different UX designs, meaning interface designs. And once you study, the idea was for me, once I got knee deep and finally studied hypnosis, you really understand this on a very basic level. And it really changes how you interact with people on certain occasions when you want to use it. Perry, my cup of tea. All right. Well, thank you. That's very sweet of you. And Jess says I'm younger. I guess so. But anyways, I'm not trying to fill anybody's boots. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to step in and try to, take their area of expertise and understanding of communication and try to reach people, because there's this vacuum of people that just spent the day, an hour every day with Scott hanging out, and it wasn't combative. It wasn't aggressive like everything in social media, which is what I want this to be, which is why I'm going to try to package all these things into one multi-platform interlinked system that we can all engage with. On the other hand, Karen Pike, she said, "Hi, Benjamin. I enjoyed your segment very much. You are intelligent, interesting, and easy to listen to. I'm a Scott Adams fan, and I know you are too. Thank you for being so useful to your listeners." Firstly, it's amazing. Thank you so much. And by being useful, I'm trying to hope that we can bring people together, and so nobody feels alone, and that we can, find friendships online and maybe friendships in person and maybe relationships. You never know. Last comment I want to go over, which is from Maureen, and I see Maureen is here. I was really pleased to see you posting a comment on one of my feeds. I don't know if you're on Discord, Maureen, but if you are, I'll let you know how you can get to there. She said, this one I loved. She said, "I love the intro music and especially your Canadian version of the simultaneous sip." I don't think many in the Canadian government will like my version of the simultaneous sip, our land acknowledgement. But cheers to you, dear. Thank you. So I love this for a couple of reasons. As I said, that one of the differences between Scott and myself, he was more the visual artist type. That's why he was a cartoonist, although I'm trying to learn. And I was more the, the audio sort of music, sort of artsy, fartsy kid when I was younger. So what I'm doing is, and somebody else asked, whose song is it? Like the intro song for the 5 minutes. Where can I get that song and all that sort of stuff. I had somebody a couple of people ask me that. So let me explain. I'm actually using AI music and my background in music to build out a number of tracks. So all the lyrics are mine, key signatures, song structure, beats per minute, bridges, choruses are all prompted by me. And I'm treating the AI music generators as if I have my own band or even orchestra, because I've done some new age sort of classical music tracks. I'm trying everything, EDM, all the music that I like, jazz music as well. And I'm imagining that, okay, I have a full suite. Let's say it's in a modern sort of rock music or whatever. I can imagine, okay, I'm back in high school, I'm in a band. And if I had the perfect band, what it would be? Oh, it'd be 2 drummers. I'd have a fretless bass as opposed to standard bass, like a Rob Wasserman type bass thing. I might have a Bruce Hornsby type of guitar, maybe a pianist, maybe a 12-string guitar. And so I'm utilizing those things. I'm imagining, okay, this is the greatest tool ever. What music can I make if I have absolutely anything I want at my fingertips? And then the one that I use, Sonu, has a sequencer. For those who don't know what sequencers are, when you see music in a studio on a computer, that's the number of tracks that are laid out. Those used to be called sequencers and then became digital when Pro Tools came out in the late 80s and stuff. So I'm kind of using my background in music and writing lyrics and putting it together and building my own music. That's one of the songs that you've heard at the intro called Turn Your Heart. And I'll just let you know, have you noticed the lyrics? Did you listen to the lyrics? Go back and listen to the lyrics. And I'm going to let that Easter egg hang for all of you. All right, into the world. What's going on? We're going to first start with Mamdani, everybody's favorite communist, Muslim Brotherhood, Islamist mayor of New York. And I'm sure I have a lot of friends who were from New York, especially friends in Florida who had moved down there over many years. A couple of you, I'm sure, are listening right now or watching. But New York has become a pile of garbage. Literally, literally a pile of garbage all over the city. It's hysterical to watch this. And it's also still covered in snow everywhere. And I think it looks like there's single lane of traffic and snowbanks everywhere. The snow hasn't been cleared. And, I posted this onto X and I said, the new communists and Islamists who call you colonizers hate you. New York, Minnesota, Toronto, all of California, a bunch of other cities. Instead of telling you directly that they hate you, all they do is just ruin your life and make you a slave over time. They call it reparations. That's what they're doing to you. And they're doing it intentionally. And that's why there's this combination of foreign money and radically brainwashed people within the left who have not been able to detect assigned opinions, like with that lawyer guy before. And they're just acting, they've gotten to the point, they've acted where they're just bringing in and empowering extremists. So this is what happens when you give the Muslim Brotherhood terrorist organization any political power. The thing that's funny about Mamdani that people, I don't know why people don't talk about, this is the dog not barking. Scott would talk it. What's the dog not barking with Mamdani? He's using communism as a veil for his Muslim Brotherhood extremism. Think about that. He believed, his team believed it's socially acceptable. Let's hide the terrorism and just call ourselves communists. And people say he's a communist. He's not a communist. He's an Islamist, which is worse. It's got many of the attributes of communism, except add to that the convert or die aspect. That's there as well. And many people in Intel, they refer to people like Mamdani as the not yet violent. They will be exceedingly violent once there is significant political influence and pressure, and they can control enough of a society. That's what's happened throughout countries in the Middle East. It's just the way it is, right? But they're just pathetic, violent thieves. They're just stealing your money. They're going to go into the country. Uh-oh, what just happened to my Substack? I hope that comes back. If you're on Substack, I'm sorry, I just got a white screen pop up. Let's hope that goes away. What they'll do is they're going to get involved in your government. You're seeing this happening in Minnesota, and they're just going to steal all your money, just like Somali pirates, right? Muslim Brotherhood and extremist groups, they are modern day organized crime, but with extremism, religion layered on top of it, meaning they will never, ever repent, ever. No. They are in this to the death. And that's why many of us in politics were warning about this for over a decade. At least New York doesn't have any rats, right? I'm not talking about the Islamists and the communists. At least there's no rats in the city, you know? Could you imagine can you imagine the smell of New York City in the summer with all those piles of garbage? It's going to be an everyday festival for New York's rodent community. I'm very excited for them. I mean, maybe New York will end up getting the Black Plague. Do you think if New York has a rat infestation problem with piles of garbage over months and months to the point that the rat infestation gets so bad that they have a Black Plague and people start buying Black Plague was Ebola, wasn't it? Something like that. Do you think if they get Ebola in New York, maybe the collectivist lefties that voted for the terrorist, maybe they might think, oh, there's a problem? I mean, I don't know. Good luck to all of you in New York who supported the new communists and the Islamists. There's so many things. New communist, champagne socialist, ethno-communist. There's so many ways to describe them that are accurate. But that's what's happening in New York. So at least it's cold and the garbage is frozen. And what's interesting last night is, although you may know, I think everybody knows, New York has a very big Jewish community. It also has a very big Hasidic community, which are two different communities, by the way. And the Hasidic community came out last night, and somebody either rented or bought a garbage truck or something. I guess they rented one. And they just started going through the city and picking up piles of garbage and throwing away. You think they're going to get credit for that? Or is that a Mossad op, right? Is the Mossad on the ground in New York doing an op by picking up people's garbage? I bet you the lawyer Larry thinks that, or whatever his name is, Lawrence. I don't remember his name already. Forget. All right. Yeah, it's so possible that they get the Black Plague. I know. It's pretty wild. Yeah, life is too short, Jesse. All right, Monkey. People get upset when I read the comments in the middle. I try to limit that, but we'll as more and more of you will come in here, I'll figure out a strategy for that. Maybe towards the end, a couple comments here and there, and boot out the people who do all capitals and start calling me names. Okay, so monkey hoax. I'm sure you've all seen this. This is great because I think I might have queued something up. I'm going to test something in the video, but I'll read it out. So if you're listening in audio, you're not going to lose anything for this. So over on Bluesky, for those who have missed it, that is my pet name for Blue Sky. This is Bluesky. And that is a reference to the Soviet tendencies of people on Bluesky. Trump posted a video. Did you see it? If you're on the internet, you've probably seen it. I'm sure it's made its way to the legacy media. But anyways, I don't need to describe it. It's the Animal Kingdom video, and all sorts of politicians who Trump doesn't like are their faces are put on some animals, including Trump. Trump is put on a lion, but a dog not barking. How's this for a dog not barking? Did anyone notice that one of the people in that video was Hillary Clinton as a boar, as a wild pig? You notice nobody from the left or right is outraged that Hillary Clinton is depicted as a wild pig. I just thought that's funny. Why is nobody noticing that, right? So the as we know, for those of you who don't know, it's gotten a lot of pushback from the collective extremists or people with no sense of humor, which is 30% of the population or 100% of the population in politics. And Obama and Big Mike were gorillas. Sorry, I'm just joking. I know it's not Big Mike. I couldn't remember her name already. I've forgotten his wife's name. But they were depicted as a gorilla. I think it was a gorilla or some sort of ape. But Hillary Clinton was a wild boar. Trump was, he's going to make it in favor of himself or whoever made it. So he's the lion. Don Lemon was some sort of rodent, I believe. I couldn't really tell. I only watched it once very quickly, right? And it was interesting. So the one thing is never apologize to the mob. Ever apologize to the mob. I never will. And that's because once you do, then it's red meat. Then they're just going to pounce all over you. But Trump did. But this is how we miss Scott Adams. Like, he would be on the floor dying of laughter. And I think he might say the apology, he may not agree with the video because he was very kind of centered on and sensitive to people on the other side. And I get that. But listen to this apology. It's so Trumpian, as he would call it. And let me see. I have it on here. Let me see if I can pull it up, and maybe I can do so if I put it on screen, okay, there it is. What if is there background? Do I make it the background? I'm just testing different things on the stream right now to see if I can. Yeah, okay, I guess it's only full screen. All right, let me turn my face off for a second while we do it. And so those of you can read it online, but I'm going to read it to all of you so you don't need to anyways. This was the Trumpian apology for the video, and it is comedy gold. This is why if you have a sense of humor, you lack a sense of humor, you don't get the show. Trump says, many people have commented on a post that was put up by a White House staffer. I even heard from the family of Jane Goodall, and they said, Mr. President, the apes are very upset that you compared them to the Obamas. It was not very nice of you. And I said, I've never thought of it that way before. We don't want to make the apes sad. There have been many good and famous apes through the years, such as Coco, Alhambra, Bear, and the orange one that was friends with Clint Eastwood. For those who don't get the reference, that's Manus from Every Which Way But Looks and Every Which Way You Can, movie I watched many times as a little kid. Kids loved that in the 80s. So he says, we want to make apes great again. So I told them to delete it. What? If you are ever considering apologizing to, hold on, let me shut that down. Okay. If you are ever considering apologizing to the woke mob in any way, shape, or form, you have to do it with a middle finger the way Trump did. I want to make apes great again, so I told them to delete it. That is such brilliant reframing of pulling himself out. Like, that is as brilliant as, remember, Only Rosie O'Donnell? That's exactly what he just did. He did another Only Rosie O'Donnell. It's great. It's absolutely great. And what's funny is it also exposes how weak we are in the West. We're all thin-skinned leftists, not every one of us, of course. But in terms of political discourse, people in politics without a sense of humor, that, oh, Mr. President, you have to delete it, and people who took offense to it, like, honestly, grow up hair. What are you, 5 years old? What, nobody has the ability to ignore things? So everybody's got to speech police everyone. It's just it's so frustrating to see that people are so thin-skinned. But Trump, the Canadian truckers, myself, many other people, we always project strength because we will never, ever, ever back down to the mob, ever, no matter what. Not happening. And that's what we need more of. I've had this in a media scrum. I had somebody ask me once many years ago. Some people, the question is always formed as an accusation, of course, in the media. And the question was something, or the assertion was something like, many people are outraged and offended and hurt by, they didn't make my comments, but let's just say my comments, they're very hurt by your perspective or your comments or whatever. And my response directly to the eyes was, other people's emotional state is none of my business. That's their problem, not my problem. Like, I was grown up sticks and stones that had a spine. What's happened to that? No wonder the jihadis and the communists are steamrolling over the West because everyone's a coward. Stop it. Just have a laugh. You think I like seeing all the Jewish conspiracy Nazis from all the Pakistanis online on Twitter and stuff? I don't like it either. So you know what I do? I mute, I block, I ignore, and that's it. Because I'm an adult, I don't pay attention to, rural weirdos in the middle of nowhere that would be having as much sex with four-legged animals as possible. I don't really care, right? They now have access to the internet so they can spew nonsense. I don't care. It's irrelevant, right? Nobody has the ability to ignore anything anymore. And the Latinos make fun of us. They call us, I learned this many times many years ago. They call us porcelana, which is, a combination of porcelain and Cinderella. We're so delicate. We're porcelanas, right? In Japan, what do they call us? Baiju, I think, is white left. I think it's baiju. I might be confusing that with another word. Just grow up, it's so frustrating. And by the way, that's how I was warned about this in politics, that all your politicians, it doesn't matter which party, are the most thin-skinned children you'll ever meet. You say the slightest little thing, they get so upset. That's not what I want us to be. I want us to be, we'll disagree, whatever. We don't have to go call each other names all the time. We're respectful. But, okay, we'll disagree. Fine. So what? You like somebody I like, I don't like somebody you like, whatever. Who cares? Because what's important to me is the good arguments. And sometimes even people I don't like come up with very good and solid arguments. You got to give them credit for that, right? Your comments are great. I'm reading all your comments. I just don't want people get upset when I disrupt them, right? Yeah, about Canada. All right, so that's kind of my thoughts on monkey hoax. Good on Trump for giving him giving the middle finger apology. I wish more of us would do that, and I think society will be a little bit better because, the way to describe the woke mob. I post this up somewhere. It's Iron Mike. Iron Mike said it best. Mike Tyson. Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. Yeah, they all got a plan how they're going to take over the world until they get punched in the face, and then all of a sudden they run away like little children. Right? They're such the most weak, thin-skinned. It's frustrating. Anyways, I'm not going to go on that, but you understand what I'm getting at. So I think it's good to project strength, and I think you should too. Doesn't mean you're disrespectful. Maybe I'm a little disrespectful right now. I'm just playing. I'm not. Come on, we're having fun. This is our time to vent and let loose. But I think you all understand because I think many of us are equally frustrated on the same page. All right. So this might upset some of you, might not. I don't know. I'm trying to be as charitable as possible. There was a video that came out the past couple of days. I think it might have been yesterday. The days just go by so quickly now. I lose track very easily because I'm doing so many things at once. And this was, it was a podcast. It was, I can't remember what it was. It was Mike Benz and someone else. And they were talking about, they're starting this frame again to assign this opinion to people of Mike Benz He's saying that Bitcoin was created by the CIA, something to that effect. The most ridiculous thing I've heard is somebody who's been into Bitcoin for many years, for a long time. Many of us who are into tech and stuff just got into it because we thought it was interesting, it was cool, it's a good idea. Transfer money on the internet, don't need a bank. Like, who likes their bank, really? I don't know many people do. So that's kind of what got me involved in Bitcoin. Just from it, just was curious about it, just found it interesting. So now I know Scott Adams really liked Mike Benz, and I can see the entertainment value. I think he's very talented, and you should watch him and you should listen to him because he does bring up some very interesting perspectives. But I have a couple of questions that have been bugging me, and this CIA thing is just kind of, I don't know, it's not put me over the edge, but it's like, okay, well, what's really going on? And maybe nothing. Maybe it's nothing. But I do know, so I don't know much about him. Some people were sending me that I asked who knew a little bit more about him. They were sending me some information. So this is what I'm told. This is what I'm led to believe. And I don't think I'm mischaracterizing him. If I am, I apologize. It's just what's sent to me. So, but Mike Benz worked for the State Department. But he worked for the State Department apparently for 2 weeks. Did you know that? I didn't know that. He apparently worked for the State Department for 2 weeks during the transition period to the Biden administration. So he was there for the last 2 weeks of the Trump administration after Trump was elected. Now, I was led to, I think Trump sent him there. So Trump asked him to be there. I don't know that, but that's kind of what I'm led to believe. So, okay, so Trump asked him to go there. Somehow they knew each other. I don't know how they knew each other. That I'd like to know. But anyways, whatever. He was there, brought in during the transition period. But if he's there only for 2 weeks, how much could he know about the internal workings? Like, I don't know, maybe I don't know what his background was before. Maybe he'd been on this for many years. So, maybe there's a perfectly logical explanation of how he knows so much, right? But I guess my frustration is, and it's not with him directly. Again, he's very talented and he's really great, and you should watch Mike Benz and you should listen to him. But he's another everything is the CIA guy, and that gets a little frustrating. That's the very American-centric view of the world, and I love my friends from the United States, but many of them don't understand there's other countries around the world that do things, and everything is also always America. Like, the only intelligence agencies they know of are the FBI or the CIA, many people, and sometimes Mossad because of the Pakistanis on the internet, right? But I do see a lot of, and maybe it's just selection bias. Maybe I'm not seeing the whole repertoire. And if I'm not being charitable, I apologize. I'm not trying to be uncharitable. But these are the questions I would ask and this is not directly just him. This is from all the everything is the CIA people. I think that I hear that, and I think, really, has no one have these people ever talked about what a threat the ISI is in the West? Do you know what the ISI is? Have they never told you how the ISI is causing so much damage? Do you even know what country the ISI is from? Most people don't know, and I don't hear any of these guys talking about the ISI, but they are causing chaos in countries like Canada with their shoestring budget, and they're 5 people on the ground, and they're like the equivalent of Denmark having to charter a plane to go to Greenland. That's what the ISI is. But they're rabid, violent, radical Islamists. And to be more charitable, there is a schism. There's a fraction within the ISI, but the majority is basically ISIS. And then there's some people still in the ISI that are, I guess, more traditional, reasonable intelligence. But has anybody figured out what country the ISI is from that's causing all this chaos? Because the ISI is from Pakistan. And this is why I joke about the Pakistanis on all over Twitter and all over X, right? They are harassing Pakistanis wherever they can, particularly in Canada, right? Canada's got a lot of migration from Pakistan. So they surveil and they threaten people. They threaten people about their friends back home, especially if you're a Pakistani Christian in Canada. They're all over you. And by the way, they're in the Conservative Party. And we've had candidates that were ISI for the Conservative Party. For everybody who wants to say, oh, Justin Trudeau bad, or sorry, Mark Carney bad, and the Conservatives good. No, they're just as bad. This is what I was always screaming about in that party. And nobody had the spine to deal with it. Half the people in the Conservative Party wanted to deal with it, like myself. And the other half, they're kind of like the rodents in New York that are going to be, having a festival around the garbage. Yeah, there's a lot of that in a lot of political parties. But the problem is there's good people there too, right? So the everything is a CIA people never talk about the ISI. What about the PRC? Do you know what the PRC is? Does people know what the PRC is? That's Chinese intel. That's China's intel agency that, like the Pakistani ISI, is causing chaos in the West, right? Now, I think Mike Benz has talked about China at length, so I don't want to take that away from him, and I thank him for doing that. But has he gone through the PRC? I don't know. I mean, I can go through a little bit. I'll give you an example. I talked about this on a previous stream, but I'll do the short version. Many years ago, I know 8 years ago, 6 years, something like that, Ai Weiwei, who is a very famous artist from China, and he's an anti-CCP artist, and he has been a thorn in the backside of Xi Jinping and the CCP. So he had an art installation, the Art Gallery of Ontario, which is our big art gallery in Canada. And yeah, Carney does have several, Sherry. Agreed. I think the last time I checked, there was 11 Muslim Brotherhood, a bunch of Khalistani, and some Chinese PRC who are elected members in the Liberal Party, by the way, and show how much I care, right? So at the Ai Weiwei exhibit at the Art Gallery of Ontario, if you were Chinese and you showed up to the art installation, there were people who were part of Chinese intel that were there on a regular basis, cycle rotation, that were screening people that would show up, and they would take pictures, they would talk to people, ask them, they would know they're talking to an intelligence person, try to get their names, be friends, that's how it is, let them talk. And they would try to identify people who are Chinese nationals who've escaped, Mark Carney forgets this, to Canada to see if they have friends back home. And if they have friends back home, they would be extorted upon for money or jailed, sent to the gulag, all that sort of stuff, right? That's what the PRC does in Canada and the United States and the United Kingdom and a bunch of Western countries. And they are deeply embedded in municipal politics. So Muslim Brotherhood and the extremists in Qatar, they usually tend to be federal politics bias, and a little bit of provincial, whereas the PRC is heavily weighted to municipal politics because it's cheaper. And then they'll get into state and provincial politics a little bit. And of course, national politics as much as they can by just getting a few candidates in there. That's how the Red-Green Alliance operates politically in the Western world and plays off one another. So my point is, for the everything is the CIA people, I don't hear about the ISI. I don't hear about the PRC. They're direct ops on the ground that I just outlaid one of many. What do you think the embassies are used for? That's why Canada shut down the Iranian embassy in Canada when Harper was Prime Minister of Canada. He actually closed the embassy. She had a stroke. But that's why. That's why he shut down their embassy. Now let's get on to another one. So again, for the everything is the CIA people, how about Muslim Brotherhood intel? Do you ever hear them talk about the Muslim Brotherhood intelligence branches that are based out of Qatar? And we know what Qatar is doing on universities, brainwashing people. I discussed yesterday how Qatar is actually now doing that in Israel as well. They gave $7 million to one of the universities as part of this woke brainwashing thing. Did you know, I learned this from somebody who married into a family of extremists. She was Canadian. She got brainwashed and she got out of it. She's a lovely woman. And she was explaining to her that through her brainwashing cycle when she was forced to convert because she married an extremist, and she was forced to cover herself, niqab, like all the, basically ISIS. And, she was brainwashed. She fell for it. And she told me that all her years of marriage, she's allowed to watch one thing on television, just one thing. You know what it was? It was Al Jazeera Arabic. That's Qatar. That's Qatar's CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Company. And by the way, they're both interlinked. That's why CBC is a nightmare, because there's Qatari money in there. But she told me she could only watch Al Jazeera Arabic. That's the only thing she was allowed to watch. So there's clearly used as a coordinated brainwashing technique, I guess. I don't know. It sure seems like that. Or maybe it's just crazy stuff. But she said what was interesting, when she would watch Al Jazeera Arabic, she said, do you know what they talked about all the time? Like the one thing they only talked about on Al Jazeera Arabic, and you have to speak Arabic to understand it. And this was going back 15 years ago. You know what they talked about? White supremacy. That's right. That's where it comes from. The woke white supremacy bullshit, that comes from Qatar. And it was all in Arabic, and the idea was to brainwash people who are the Muslim faith, that whether you're converts or not, and whether you're in Canada, the US, the UK, wherever you are, white supremacy 24/7, over and over again. Remember, repetition is the godfather of persuasion, or godmother if you want. And over again, Muslims would hear white supremacy, white supremacy, white supremacists are going to kill you. That's all she heard. It got to the point where, and she has blonde, blue eyes, like, I don't know, I think she's Irish descent or something. It got to the point where she eventually snapped out of it. But she said she started to think she couldn't see her own family because she was brainwashed to believe her family are white supremacists because they're white, and she wouldn't see them. This is how brainwashing works. So it comes out of Al Jazeera in Qatar. That's why Al Jazeera, I think, was banned in Israel and a few other jurisdictions. I'm not sure why. It's a brainwashing exercise is what they're doing. So back to the intelligence agencies and the everything is a CIA people. You don't hear them talk about Qatar, the Muslim Brotherhood intelligence apparatus that is based in Qatar. How about MOIS? MOIS. Do you hear them ever talk about MOIS? MOIS? You don't hear them talk about that. I never hear the everything is the CIA people talk about the ISI, the PRC, MOIS. Do you know what MOIS is? I bet you don't. That's the Ministry of Intelligence and Security for Iran. And Iran, as we know, both has that and the IRGC. Do you hear them talking about the IRGC? The IRGC are those groups are the ones that were running these intelligence ops where they surveil and threaten people's families back home in Iran out of the Iranian embassy that Stephen Harper closed and Justin Trudeau promptly reopened when he got elected. They don't tell you that. The everything is a CIA people don't tell you that, do they? And lastly, and by the way, why is that so significant? Because Hezbollah, which we also know is an asset of Iran, IRGC, MOIS, Hezbollah is so deeply entrenched in Brazil, and some say running most of the country. How do you think Lula got elected? Why do you think Bolsonaro was convicted with that? Well, I'm not going to refer to that justice, but the garbage justice who should be hanging from a crane in Brazil. What about that? They don't tell you about that. And the last thing, and this is going to cause people to get an evaded state. I'm sorry, but this is just reality. You got to call balls and strikes. How about the SVR, the GRU, the FSB? Do you hear any of that ever? You know what those are? Does anybody know? That's Russia. Yeah, that's Russia. Listen, all countries have intel operations, and when you're a small country like Russia, that's largely irrelevant. When you're an irrelevant tiny country like Russia, and you need to punch above your weight, you try to wave the whole look at my nukes that probably don't even work, and you engage in psychological operations in the West to try to demoralize your society, right? And GRU, put a pin in that for a second. So, and by the way, yes, Russia tried to sabotage the trucker convoy. Did you know that? Did you know Russian operatives showed up and tried to bait us and tried to sabotage us and cause a meltdown like January 6th in Canada? You didn't know that, did you? There's only a few of us that know that. I've experienced it myself. I've seen what vicious garbage they are. And I can give you the names of the people who they are. They're still in Canada and they're entrenched in our political parties. You want to know the names? So anyways, you're probably all wondering at this point, okay, I get it. What's his point? Well, my frustration is all I seem to hear over and over again is this Duginism framing of the world. And this is really, really important to understand who Alexander Dugin is. And we're going to talk more about him in later podcasts. But that's where this bullshit comes from. He's the Noam Chomsky of Russia and equally pathetic to most Russians. He's a joke, right? But he's here in the West, and Westerners eat up his nonsense. Dugin is philosophically the equivalent to AI slop. It's just lazy collectivist thinking. He is a far-left communist who cloaks himself around Christian identitarianism, trying to brainwash younger people in the West. And I hear these people repeating all of this stuff. And it's very, the philosophy is really sloppy and lazy and complete nonsense. But the method used to brainwash people in the West is very sophisticated. The philosophy of the woke right comes from Alexander Dugin. And remember I mentioned the GRU? GRU was Soviet intelligence. Guess whose father was in the GRU? That's right, Alexander Dugin. Right? It's the same collectivist nonsense. And Westerners need to cease the suspension of critical thinking to understand what's going on. His father apparently was very prominent in the GRU. And this is what Yuri Bezmenov warned about, this okaphobia tendencies of the West, of people to be brainwashed, to hate their culture. And remember the many steps of taking over a civilization, the demoralization aspect. That's what Dugin is. He's the demoralization wing, the demoralization set within that strategy. This also explains Tucker Carlson, doesn't it? Is he got to know Dugin very well, right? That 8 hours in a private conversation with Dugin. We're going to talk more about him in the future. I touched on it in the past, but you get the point. So it's just be skeptical of the everything is the CIA people. And I'm not taking away from Mike Benz. I think he does a lot of good. He talks about the Communist Party, I think ad nauseum, and he does some really good work warning and trying to explain some of the structures of the things that go on behind the scenes. And I don't want to take that away from him and from others. But the everything is the CIA stuff's got to stop, right? Especially, didn't you just get your guy in office? And aren't they now in charge of this massive bureaucracy that will take many years to fix and undo from the wokeism? And I discussed this in the previous podcast, how law enforcement and intelligence agencies become woke over time. So, changing government by design, as I mentioned on Scott Adams' stream yesterday, it's like doing a U-turn with a battleship, and by design. Because could you imagine what our life would be if I hate using that word, the wokeists, the ultra leftists were in power, and they could just change government policy overnight, like on a dime? We would be living in the most schizophrenic society anyone had ever seen. We collapse immediately. So it has to be slow to transition things. And unfortunately, they've been doing this, as a friend of mine says, they've been doing this for 50 years. 50 years. And look how much Trump has done to undo things in just 12 months. It's going to take a long time. This is also why your midterms are important. And these people that we're referring to, the Duginists, they're eroding the Tucker Carlsons of the world, the Qatari mouthpieces. They're doing everything they can to cost Trump the midterms. And you're already on Bluesky. You go on Bluesky, you know what you start to see? They're talking about all it started this week. You hear this word over and over again now on Bluesky. Impeachment. They keep talking about impeaching Trump now. So if you don't get out in the midterms and sustain the administration that will have its flaws like all administrations do, and you behave like a little child and you don't get 100% everything you want, and I'm like that too sometimes. I get that. I understand the frustration. But there's some policies I get frustrated with too. But if you don't secure your midterms in the United States in November, it's going to be impeachment after impeachment after impeachment, and all the progress that's been done will be completely eroded away. They started this week over and over again. Yeah, Perry, when do they not talk about impeachment? Agreed, but now it's on another level. Now you can tell the PR mechanism of the other side is now going to is gearing up for using impeachment as a weapon, and that will. Not going to say it's going to destroy Western society, but can you imagine living in a world where we have Keir Starmer in the UK, the blackface regime that's still in power with creepy Carney at the helm, and a woke leftist running the United States? You don't want to live in that world. You really don't. Yeah. So, anyways, that's the only thing. Again, I'm not criticizing Mike Benz. It's just everything is the CIA argument, and I'm not washing away things that the CIA might have done that were immoral, but also you got to look at many of these things that people call out that the CIA did. It's under the context of the Cold War, and if you don't understand how serious it was, talk to your parents or grandparents how severe that time was, where people lived in fear of a real fear of nuclear war at any moment, right? That's why there was such desperation. And, when there's desperation, people are going to do bad things, and the bureaucracy is going to spin a little out of control, and maybe bad people will get a hold of the bureaucracy and do negative things, Yeah, Jesse just says, I lived in that world. It wasn't pretty. So we got to take, how things operated in context. And we can't judge people in the past by the standards and the context of the modern world. That's what the woke lefties do. Anyways, so let's get into something positive and shut it down, because it's not all negative. And I hope you understand I wasn't trying to be disrespectful to anybody. I want us all to kind of communicate and agree and disagree on stuff and have open conversations. And when we do that, we can maybe get to some truth. So I think it's important. I always discuss how, for me, positive framing of the world is vital. And firstly, here, the snow is melting, even though, it was melting. Now it's minus 15. So, but I'm sure lots of places around the world, it is, in maybe the Northeast and in the South that had snow. The days are getting longer. You got to love that every year. That's amazing. The New York lefties are going to get what they deserve, unfortunately. But, sometimes karma is something where you grab your coffee and just sit back and watch. And maybe we'll do a little bit of that. The skill we need to develop is to filter out and compartmentalize the negative noise. So, like we've discussed here, we've discussed some negative things, but not letting it rule you, just acknowledging it's there, being informed about it, but not letting the negativity control your emotional state. The skill is being to amplify all the amazing things and gratitude in your life, in my opinion, while you acknowledge some of the negative. And, sometimes you take the negative things, you do some research, you learn about things, great. And then you put it in a little box, you lock it up, and you put it on the shelf, and you save it there for when you need it and you need to come back to it. That's kind of how I live my life. That's why I try not to, I don't let most things get to me, right? And sometimes, searching for the positive things to have gratitude in your life might be as simple as, today was just an amazing cup of coffee. Today was just an amazing time for us sitting together, talking and pontificating and pondering things in the world. That's just a little thing that was amazing. And that we're finding each other here. And this little bit of us, I don't like the word community, but those of us who came together, Jesse and many others who've been in Substack for such a long time, we're going to grow, and there's going to be more and more of us. I can already see it happening in the analytics and with some of the negative comments that are coming in, and I love that. So we're going to build out the Substack locals and Discord. We'll bring it all together. There will be a subscription model to part of it, but not all of it, and we'll explain things as things move along. I'm going to try to make everything accessible to everybody, so everyone has the opportunity to participate and share their ideas as much as possible. And these live streams might even ramp up over time. So do me a favor. You can do me one favor that will make myself and I think yourself feel better. Get out there today and find somebody and make their day amazing. A phone call, reach out, a text message, saying something nice in person, something you haven't spoken to in a year, 2 years, 3 years. Just do a follow-up. Say, hey, been thinking about you. Just hope you're all well, you're okay. Anything new in your life, and that's it. That changes a lot of people's lives, right? Perry says, and Epstein was using Bitcoin back in the day. That isn't nothing, talking about meeting with BTC insiders. Yeah, listen, new technology, everybody used Bitcoin, but he primarily used fiat money for money laundering. It wasn't Bitcoin. It was banks. That's the whole point of why the big banks have been implicated in that, right? Bitcoin being pseudo-anonymous is part of the reason that a lot of criminal activity is not using Bitcoin, because they fear it's pseudo-anonymous, whereas cash is completely anonymous, right? And that's why our governments are trying to move you away from a cash society into, a digital. I mean, we're using digital money right now, right? But that's a whole long other perspective. Heidi, I really appreciate your informed perspective. Well, thank you. And I'm never going to profess to get everything wrong. And I think as we grow too, that, I'm going to ask you more and more things as people who are in the chat feeds. That's something I know Scott did that I really enjoyed, is he kind of looked for your feedback. What do you know about this? Can somebody look this up, and that sort of thing? We'll be doing more of that as time goes on, as we delve deeper into stuff, just for fun, right? And we're not going to take all of this so seriously. This is life. The world is complex. And maybe if we're lucky, we can change the world a little bit and make the world a little bit better than how we found it. And if we can do that and all come together, I think we've achieved a moral mission that many people would, in the future, will look favorably upon. Okay, my father was a World War II general, Canadian vet from Nova Scotia, turned pipeline after, it's hard to read, turned pipeline after the war. I could write several books, Maureen. Well, thank you. Well, Maureen, you'll see on that book right there. See that brown book behind my finger? That is Tug of War. And Tug of War was written by Brigadier General Dennis Whitaker, who I think is the most decorated military general in Canadian history. And that is my biological grandfather. So on that note, we're going to call it a day. And I love you all. Have an amazing day and change people's lives for the better. Bye-bye now. And